Hey everyone! I'm so excited to be making a video today after a really long time. I'm sorry, I know I have taken some time off. I shouldn't say sorry, I'm not sorry that I took the time off. I needed the time off. I am sorry it took so long though, but I'm back now. I'm back with my energy, and this video today is very exciting because it's not so much an advice type of type of video, as much as it is a retelling of a story. Okay, and the reason I chose this story today is because, you know, mainstream media does not cover stories about ET contact at all in a real way. Okay, and what I mean by that is when a lot of these contact stories are told, you know, through videos or on certain channels, things like that, it's almost like not a lot of emphasis is given to it, like it's a true story. Okay, it's kind of like maybe it happened, maybe it didn't. So the story that I'm covering today, okay, the reason I'm covering it is because it's such a huge story. There's a lot of information out there about it. You can go on Google, YouTube, you can find information, but the thing is, it's not pushed forward, so it's not something you've probably even heard of. A few followers, of course, people who are interested in these topics like ETs, spirituality, higher consciousness, things like that, they probably know about this. Okay, there was a lot of proof, a lot of evidence provided in this case, and today I'm talking about the Billy Meier case, okay, and the Pleiadians. So this is a story about a guy, and I will give the details, about a guy named, well, it's really Eduard Meyer, that's his real name, and he's from Switzerland. He is now in his late 80s, about 87, I believe, but throughout his life, since he was 5 years old, he was contacted by ETs, and he took, you know, videos, he took photos of the actual craft in the air, also landed, and these photos and these videos were studied, were critiqued by experts, and were then, you know, basically said to be authentic. So the actual story of Billy Meier is very long. So if you go on YouTube and look this up, you will find videos. They will have videos on this and information, but it's like many different parts. It's like 5 or 6 or I don't know, 10 parts to the video, I think. So with all the details. And what I like to do is, you know, is to kind of sum it up and put the important stuff. Okay, so if you want the details, you can go online and find all of this for sure. But in this video that I'm making today, I really want to cover the most important things that happened in Billy Meier's life regarding his contact with the Pleiadians, and also more importantly, the messages that the Pleiadians brought forth. Okay, this is what's important: the information and the messages that these Pleiadian beings brought forth who contacted Billy Meier. So let's get into it. So this guy's name, his full name is Eduard Albert Meyer. He was born in Switzerland in 1937, so that makes him now 83 years old. His first contact experience was at the age of 5 in 1942, not with the Pleiadians, but with another race. Okay, so not too much information was given on his contact experience with this other race. He did, you know, mention, of course, that he was contacted. However, he didn't say much more else about it. So we just know that he was contacted by another race, and it started really early on in his life, from about the age of 5. Sorry, I'm looking down because I have like a lot of notes here. Okay. Like I said, he did take physical photos of the craft in the sky, also landed, and many of these are online from 1976 onwards. Okay, something interesting is that for those of you who have watched the X-Files, okay, one of his photos is actually in the show. So it's showing a UFO that was it was used as the background of the "I Want to Believe" poster that featured in the office of FBI Special Agent Fox Mulder. Okay, so you can take a look at that if you know what that is. Like I said, these photos have been authenticated by photographic and special effects experts beginning in the 70s. And in 2017, a former top investigator supervisor for the USAF Office of Special Investigations, his name is Joe Tysk, Tysk, He analyzed Meyer's evidence from 1964, all those photos and videos, and he did conclude that they were authentic. So these pictures have been, really critiqued. They have been looked at, they've been examined, they've been studied. They are not fake, okay? Because I know there's so many people out there that no matter how much proof you put in their face, they're going to say, oh, it could have been a hot air balloon. Like, I don't want to hear that, because the story that I'm telling you today is all true. This really happened. There was evidence that has been studied by experts, and this really happened. Okay, so, and the reason I wanted to really talk about this today is because our galactic brothers and sisters are all around us, and they're going to make contact with us really soon. It's important to normalize the idea of other beings. We're not the only ones, and it would be so ignorant to think that we are. I just get bashed a lot when I talk about this kind of thing, like it's so foo-foo and it's so, what is that, like ETs, really honestly speaking, it's more real than a lot of the things we think are real. Okay, and we need to be prepared because they will make contact with us soon. They have already been making contact with us, but very carefully, so as to not ruin or cause an imbalance in our evolution, okay? Because too much interference, we weren't at that level yet to really understand that there are other beings out there. We first had to really work on ourselves, and we still do, but the time has come, and they will be making contact. So this is a really cool story. I wish it would be more mainstream so people wouldn't be so shocked about these kinds of things, I'm sure so many of you guys have seen UFOs. I've seen so many here in Bolivia, constantly actually in the skies. Maybe military craft, but to me, from everything I've seen online as well, definitely, to me, they're ET craft. And they're around us, they're all around us if you pay attention. So here's a really cool story. So in May of 2019, this guy named Michael Horn, who is a science researcher and documentary filmmaker, he provided evidence at a Contact in the Desert conference, providing Meyer's contact experience. These were discoveries by NASA, JPL, USGS, and etc., confirming outgoing and direct contacts between Billy and the Pleiadians. Okay, more confirmation. Billy Meier was provided information by the Pleiadians regarding every planet in the solar system, black holes, speed of gravity, terrestrial, environmental, seismic, and volcanic events. So they also came with many warnings, right? The reason that many of these ETs come here to contact us is to help us. The problem with the mainstream narrative is that they've put so much fear, that now when people think of aliens, they freak out. They think that they're these evil, gray-looking or reptilian-looking beings that are going to come in and take over and kill us and eat us. Okay, that's not what it is. That's what they want you to think. That's what the cabal wants you to think. Because when the time comes for the ETs to make contact with us soon, they have another plan, which is a fake alien invasion. Okay, and they're going to basically say that aliens are coming to Earth, and you'll need to they're going to put you in major fear mode, so that they have more control over the masses and they can tell you what to do. But the truth of the matter is, think about it, if there were really horrible ETs out there, okay, they would have already come and done that. And the truth of the matter is, and the sad truth is, that those evil ETs have been controlling us for a very long time. These are the reptilian beings, these service to self, lower 4D beings. Reptilian, not just reptilian. I'm sure I've heard that there are also other beings, like from Orion and certain other races of beings that are also working with them and have been working with these shadow governments, and working on controlling us and using us as slaves this entire time. And this is what we're breaking free from now, okay? We're breaking free from the evil, going towards the light, dark to light. So please don't have fear when the time comes for ETs to make contact with us. They are not evil. They're actually benevolent. And they're here to help us evolve and to help us unite with the rest of the we're going to become a part of the Galactic Federation of planets, which is super exciting. We're actually going to take part in meetings and decisions and things like that with other races in our solar system. I mean, I'm very excited about that. extremely excited about that. It's going to be one huge step for humanity, let me put it that way. We'll be moving from being just regular humans to becoming galactic humans, okay? So it's exciting stuff, and this is part of the reason why I'm sharing this story. It's to let you know they are real, they exist. I myself identify as a Pleiadian. I know that that is my soul group, and that is where I come from. I incarnated this lifetime, of course, as a human, but I brought with me a different consciousness, different remembrances, different knowledge, okay? And this all, for me, I'm an ancient soul, but this all comes from the Pleiades. This is where I come from, and this is why I identify so much with them, too. So, let's start with the contact notes, okay? So just a little bit of background information on Billy and his childhood. Okay, so Billy had a really hard time in school. I'm sure like most of us starseeds can relate to. He had a really hard time being a normal kid. Basically, he used to skip school a lot because of it. He was picked on. He got in a lot of trouble because he just didn't know how to speak up for himself from a young age. So whenever he would get in trouble for something, even if he didn't do it, he wouldn't know how to say, I didn't do it. He would just kind of take that in. So he was blamed for a lot of stuff because it was easy, right, to put the blame on somebody who doesn't know how to speak for themselves. So this was kind of his childhood. At a certain age, it doesn't say exactly when, but he was instituted, okay, at a younger age, but he did break out of the clinic, and he would spend a lot of time in nature and forests. So just to get an idea, you know, and he was born in Switzerland, so he was just this really innocent kid who didn't know how to deal with this 3D society. He didn't know how to speak up for himself. He was blamed for things, and of course he was then looked at like there was something wrong with him, so he was institutionalized, and he broke out of it. So you can imagine it wasn't a very nice childhood that he had. When he was a bit older then, he went to France, and he joined the Foreign Legion. From there, he was sent to Algeria, and while there, he actually escaped. Okay, he was not happy, he escaped. And now, he was guided to, once he escaped, he was guided to go back to Europe, back to France. So he did, and he ended up back in a clinic. I'm sorry, not to France. I think he went back to Switzerland, and then he ended up back in the clinic. He spent 4 years there in the clinic. He then spent 12 years on the road after that, traveling. He went to India, Pakistan, he went to a few different countries, and then he went to Greece, which is where he met his wife. Now, on February 3rd, 1953, and by the way, February 3rd is his birthday, his contact began with a being named Asket, A-S-K-E-T. He was told, okay, by Asket that his birthday was very significant, and anyone born on that day would have the same abilities, you know, as he did. So he was told by Asket to meet her. So Billy goes to this hill, this mountain, you know, and sees a silver ball come down from space. He goes toward it and finds himself floating into the ship, and there was no one there. There was just one seat in the ship, okay? So he takes a seat in this one seat in the ship, and this telepathic female voice starts to talk to him from the ship itself, okay? It's telling him that it would take Billy to her, and suddenly the ship around him becomes completely invisible. So to him, it's like he's sitting in this seat, but he's like floating in nothing, basically. That's what he described it as. And then he feels like he's just floating. It's just in something invisible amongst the stars. Okay, so he says it goes across the Indian Ocean and lands somewhere, and then he gets out. Turns out he was in Jordan, in the Middle East. Okay, this is where he had landed. So he landed in Jordan, he touched a rock, and he got downloads about the rock. Like he would touch it and he would start getting these downloads. So he sees another ship then. It lands, and then he meets Asket, this Pleiadian being, and she walks out. He said he felt so much love and care that he couldn't believe it, but he recognized her, and he said she was absolutely beautiful. She invites him into her ship, which has 3 seats, and they take off. They land in Egypt. And by the way, there's a lot more detail to the story, but like I said, I'm giving you the important stuff, okay? He did have a lot more detail, so you can go online to find that all the details about, the little details, okay? So, but it's going to take way too long, so that's why I'm just summarizing this for you. Okay, so they land in Egypt, and they land next to the Great Sphinx. She attaches a device around his waist, and they were invisible to everyone around them. Okay, so this device she had could make them invisible. And then they end up going down deep into the pyramids through these secret corridors and past some guards who protect the entrance of an ancient civilization who did not wish to be detected. This was about 300 to 400 meters down, is what he said. He then sees a flying saucer in an open space that's been down there for a very long time. It was hidden by an ancient race. And he sees a cross 2 meters long and a robe, a heath with thorns, and a bag of stones, assuming that they belong to Jesus. So then they leave and they go back to Jordan, and they spend 2 days there with Asket, him and Asket together. So she explains many things to him during this time, about himself, about his prophetic role in this lifetime. She explains that the universe is alive and it embodies all the information that exists. She says that creation is the life force, okay? And this was really important because life force, right? We think about God. We think about life force. She's saying creation in itself is the life force. Think about that. Asket said that her people have been coming to our universe for 33 centuries, and that they came from a neighboring universe called the Dal universe, D-A-L, and her race were called Temurs, T-E-M-U-R-S, Temurs. That was the name of her race. Her planet is called Akon, A-K-O-N, like the singer. That's the name of her planet. So once her race once her race had advanced enough technologically, they were able to travel to our universe, and basically their role was as explorers. She said Earth humans did not originate here, but actually we came from Lyra, which is, she specifically said 2/3 of the white race of humans are Lyran. Lyrans no longer exist, okay? They kind of basically became extinct due to wars. About 230,000 years back. And then they founded the Pleiades, which is interesting. So Lyra itself no longer exists. There was a lot of galactic wars and things, and it probably exploded like many other planets. And so for their race to survive, they then found the Pleiadian constellation, and that's where they ended up, creating their base. And so the Pleiadians, in a sense, are Lyrans, if you think about it, which is really cool. She told him that all the contact experience that he has been having since young was to prepare him for a prophetic role later, where he would interact with Lyran beings and also write a book in Pleiadian transmissions. So there was one Lyran being, and I'm going to try and pronounce the name of this being as best as I can. Arahad Athrasata, okay? Arahad Athrasata. That is the name of the Lyran being that he would have contact with later, is what she told him. And interestingly enough, and I'm going to talk about this in a second as well, Jesus, according to her, never really existed. Actually, there was a man who lived the life of Jesus, but his name was Emmanuel, okay? And they actually meet with Emmanuel at some point. They travel back in time. And I'll go over that just now. But this Arahad Athrasata Lyran being is actually the same being that had contact with Emmanuel 2,000 years ago. And she told him that he, Billy Meier, was also later on going to be making contact with the same being, which is really cool. She did tell him that his path would be difficult, okay? She said, the truth is not subject to change, and there are laws in creation. So when creation had the idea to create the universe, there were fixed laws with this, that came with this. Creation itself has logic, she said. It has purpose, and there are reasons for things we don't understand yet. And this is what creates the laws of the universe. Without laws, there's no spiritual evolution. She said that the asteroid belt used to be called Milana. This was between Earth and Mars, and it was blown up due to a war. This explosion threw Mars out of its orbit and attacked all the life there. And that's interesting because, you know, there's a lot of beings right now, a lot of souls that incarnated from Mars. Okay, and there's a very famous story about a Russian kid. I forget his name now. I'm sorry, because I wasn't prepared to talk about this in this video, but it just came to me now. There's a famous story, and when I find the link, I will add it to the bottom of this video. You can take a look, but there's a kid. He's still a kid now. He's probably like in his early teens, but in Russia, and he was on like a show and a news and everything because he had all these memories of being on Mars, what his job was on Mars, who he was, what happened to his... So he talked about this. He actually talked about the war on Mars and being there. He was some kind of pilot of a craft, and he remembers there being just, you know, all the life was gone, basically, and all these souls incarnated then onto Earth, okay? So that really does coincide with what Asket says, you know? She explained that her mission was to come to Earth and warn us about the danger we were creating because scientists were understanding more about atoms and nuclear energy, bombs, etc., and were under the danger of blowing Earth up. She talked about how terrorism and warfare was being promoted by cardinals and Jewish Zionist extremists. This is all coming from Asket. She said she and other ET races don't have the authority to interfere in politics, religion, or anything due to law of free will. There is a renegade Pleiadian group called Ptaah, F-A-T-H, and they have been trying to take control of Earth for a long time, and they split off from the Pleiades. So this is a Pleiadian group, but they're not benevolent. They're actually on the other side, and they call themselves Ptaah. Okay, and they have actually been trying to take control of Earth for quite some time. They control politicians sometimes. Okay, now we can maybe think about Biden, we can think about Obama. Maybe this is related. Maybe it's not reptilian. Maybe it's this group, these Pleiadian renegade group. They control politicians sometimes, and they created the fake crucifix, the heath and everything that's under the pyramid to fool humanity as the real ones were destroyed. This was to further enforce religion, which makes it easier to control people. So they placed those items that he saw earlier when he went to Egypt with Asket in the beginning, went to the pyramids, went to that underground, civilization, and saw the heath that I mentioned and the crucifix and all that. Those were placed by this renegade Pleiadian group so that our archaeologists can discover this at some point and say, oh, wow, this is Jesus's stuff, and then it further enforces religion, makes it easier to control us when religion we really don't need religion, okay? She said all of creation can be explained mathematically using the number, and she said, all of creation can be explained mathematically, and that the numbers 3, 7, and 12 are important numbers, and the whole universe consists of a closed circle. Okay? She said Billy would have to confront this Ptaah group at some point, who were prominent in Berlin, the Thull Society, okay, and that his life would be in danger, and this comes with his role, she explains to him. She said that there were 2.7 million people who had seen a UFO by that time, which was 1956. 3,104 people had contact with ETs, most telepathic, some physical, and 3,000 ships were already coming into our atmosphere at that time. Asket said that Jesus Christ never actually existed, so this is what I was going to get to, and a man named Emmanuel, who lived during the same time, and they were actually his teachings, and it was his life that they are retelling. In the year 189 they took his life and his teachings, and they changed his name to Jesus Christ, which means anointed one. The Bible has been changed so many times, and the pyramids of Egypt, which were built about 73,300 years ago by the earth people of that time, who were the Lyrians. Give me a sec. Asket says that the pyramids were built when the star sign Lyra was in Cancer. She says that 3 major pyramids were built, one underground in China, which we have not found yet. She said we will, but we haven't found it yet. Another one in South or Central America, just below the surface. And then, of course, the Egyptian pyramids. Now, she talks about pyramid power, talking about how that shape of a pyramid, when you're in it, it actually blocks outside radiation. It helps with teleportation, and it also has protective qualities, you could say. She talks about 300 years before the Great Flood, okay? 300 years before the Great Flood, which was over 10,000 years ago, there was a king named King Saruk, S-A-R-U-K, and he had a son. His son had the ability to see future events, and he did see the flood. So the king had the pyramid rebuilt because of this, and the gold. So initially it was actually covered all in gold, and because of the flood, they stripped the gold and they put limestone. They put limestone so that it would be waterproof. They then left inscriptions on the pyramids to let them know what they did and what it was for. So this is interesting. These hieroglyphs are actually instructions. They were instructions to let the people know what they did to the pyramid and what it was going to be used for. Okay? So when the flood actually came, the people used the underground cities to survive, and like bunkers, essentially. So the interesting thing here, though, is that the Egyptians didn't actually build the pyramids. They didn't. The Lyrians built the pyramids, who were the first humans. Okay? The Egyptians just rebuilt the pyramids. They stripped it and then remodeled it. Not even rebuilt, they remodeled it. That's what they did. Something else really interesting. She mentioned that horses, which originated in America and were brought to these lands, they were brought by ETs, and these horses were actually called Hyperions. The name of horses was Hyperions, and they were brought by ETs to Earth, okay, and brought directly to America. They then time traveled to the year 32, and in Emmanuel's life, okay, 4 days. Let me see, 1 second. So they were there for 4 days. They time traveled to the year 32, and they went to Emmanuel's life. Okay, they were there for 4 days. Billy has had a direct conversation with Emmanuel, and in 1975, Billy Meier meets Semjase. I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced. S-E-M-J-A-S-E. This is another being now from the Pleiades. So something happens here where she gets a little bit upset because Billy Meier tells the Pleiadians that he's going to go public with speeches about the information that they're providing him. But then he keeps changing his mind. He says, yeah, I'm going to do it, but then he doesn't do it. He keeps getting fearful of coming forth with this information. Because it's a lot, think about it. To say that I went back in time, I time traveled, I met, Jesus or Emmanuel. I talked to him, I talked to these other beings. I mean, it can sound a little crazy, especially during that time. So I guess, they're expecting him to be a little more brave, I guess, in the way that he's doing all this, but he keeps changing his mind, okay? Because he says it's too shocking for people. Then Semjase brings another being named Ptaah, P-T-A-A-H. into the conversation who seems to understand where Billy is coming from. So it's a male. Ptaah is a male. He's kind of an older, more respected male figure. Okay. Semjase shows Billy a device on her ship that looks like a globe. And when you touch it and think of someone, it shows symbols that tell of that person's past, present, and future. So that's really cool. My notes end here, guys, okay, because we're at 30 minutes, and I didn't want to make this video longer than 30 minutes. I know there's a little more about the story, like, later on, but I kind of just really wanted to give you this, you know, whatever I talked about was the main information, the main adventure part of his contact experience. It's really interesting, you guys, okay, that somebody who is still alive today had that experience. Actually, I think he might have passed. I'm not sure. He might have recently passed, but he was alive until very recently. He might have just passed. I'm not sure about that. I'll check on that. But you guys, Billy Meier and the Pleiadians, this is a really interesting story. I urge you, if you're interested in this, if this sparks your interest, go online on YouTube. There's so much more detailed information about his, like, interactions with Asket, with Ptaah, with Semjase, his actual conversations with them, and a lot more detail. There's like 50, I think it's a 15-part video, so you can understand why I had to bring this down, okay? He saw crazy technology, he saw crazy things, he got crazy information from these beings, and I think it's obvious now that they're not evil, okay? They continue to come, and they will come to help us evolve, to help us discover the truth, to help us learn about who we are. Okay, and I've said this before, we are angelic humans. We did not originate here on Earth, and I've always said this. It doesn't make any logical sense. Okay, we came from other planets. We were created here, okay, in that sense. Our DNA was manipulated a little bit along the way by negative ETs, and that was to lower our vibration, to create slaves, a slave race. We were taken down from 12-stranded DNA to 2-stranded DNA. And we are now in the process of reactivating all that DNA, all that junk DNA the scientists call, right? Junk DNA. It's not junk. It's far from junk. As we reactivate our DNA, our abilities are going to come online, you guys. And that means you're going to have abilities that you only see in movies and shows. You know, telekinesis, moving things with your mind, telepathy, speaking and communicating with your mind, your intuition, foreseeing events, okay? Your physical body will change as well, you guys, because we're going from carbon-based to crystalline-based. This implies that our actual cells, okay, we're activating the crystalline aspect of our cells, of our DNA. So their skin will change. You're going to require different foods, lighter foods, more fruit, more water, more foods that have life force energy. Remember, guys, life force energy. If you're eating meat, that's like totally cooked down, and vegetables that are, you know, cooked completely and things like that, you're not getting what you need. And you need this to ascend. You need high vibrational food, you guys, to really continue activating your DNA. Eat foods that are not going to calcify your pineal gland, our third eye. This is another sense that we have that should be fully activated already. Actually, in some it is. So yeah, I just wanted to share that really interesting story, guys, about Billy Meier and the Pleiadians. And I will be sharing a few more stories in the future about other people who have had these kinds of contact experiences with ETs, because these stories are coming out more and more. I'm sure you guys have heard Demi Lovato's account, right, of her UFOs and things like that, and people think she's crazy, but she's not. She actually went to, I forget what it's called, but it's this like farm, you know, outside area that people go to make contact. It's like a famous place in the US, and Dr. Stephen Greer was actually there with her, and she had these crazy experiences. Miley Cyrus talked about it. So many people by now. It's just a lot of people are scared. A lot of people are scared to talk about their experiences because they don't want people to think that they're crazy. But you're not. And the more people talk about their own experiences and contact experiences with other beings, normalizes it. You understand? So don't be afraid. If you've had an experience like this, oh gosh, I would love to hear it. Like, message me and let me know. I'll talk about it in one of my videos. I think it's super cool. So send you guys a lot of love. I hope you enjoyed this sort of short video on Billy Meier and all that cool information. So I will see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye.